This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Late-night stroll in the park at Monza was anything but soothing for multi-time champion Karl Modhoff. A poor qualifying and a slow pit stop made a stark contrast to his previous two seasons. But it wasn't just him that struggled in the opening round. Known hot shoes Macbeth, Flores, and Caraballo all came away with miserable nights. Watkins Glen could be an opportunity for them to reset and get back on the right track. We'll see who responds as we get ready to watch round 2 of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, the Glen should be similar to Monza with its speed, but with a pretty drastically different nature to its corners.
Exactly. New York's Thunder Road up here on the hill that overlooks the tiny little village of Watkins Glen, New York, is by no means a stranger to speed. The Seneca Lakeside hallowed grounds here rebirthed road racing in North America after World War II and have since seen just about every single racing series in existence, from NASCAR to Formula One to IMSA to IndyCar and everything in between. But Joe, you said it perfectly there. The speed from Monza last week will once again be seen tonight as the drivers will be able to explore the speedometer over the 5.5 kilometers or 3.4 miles here. However, the 12 turns here are so unique. Most of them deal with some kind of elevation change to throw off the balance of your car, being very technical, and many of them require you to be able to carry the speed throughout your apex, causing just the slightest of errors to erupt into something much bigger. From the plunge down into the 90 to the slipstream up through the S's to the finicky quirks of the boot, Watkins Glen International is sure to put on a show. And to get a better idea of what the circuit looks like for the drivers, allow me to send you down to the front stretch to the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Taylor Burris and the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around Watkins Glen. Down into the 90, this is a great place to pass, but with the downhill braking, you've really got to be careful not to overshoot it. While you've got a lot of paved runoff, if you kill your speed on the exit, you're going to pay for it by the time you hit the backstretch. Even though the S's are pretty much a single file affair, it's still easily flat out, so the drivers behind will be catching a huge draft on you all the way up the hill. Once you hit the backstretch, they're likely going to be closing in quickly, and if they've timed it right, you could be helpless. The real danger isn't just in losing a spot. It's the fact that the next time you brake, it's for the inner loop. This chicane is notorious for wreaking havoc when cars go side by side. It's best if you sort it out by the time you're navigating through here. That then throws you directly into the carousel. This long banked bend requires quite a bit of patience so that you don't understeer your way into the Armco. Then, before you know it, you've got to switch sides to set up for the chute. When it comes to corners you don't want to overcook, this one ranks pretty high up there. There's no place to save it on the outside except for just plowing into the tires. As we come to the lowest part of the course, you'll be braking for the toe of the boot. You might see some passes here if someone catches a good run on their opponent. But as you can see, the best way through is to give yourself a nice late apex and confidently apply the power. This steep uphill climb is going to punish anyone who hesitates by sucking up all of their speed. Because of that, this run to the heel of the boot often sees pass attempts. Now, they don't always go off, but you've got to have your head on a swivel depending on who's behind you. After that, you hit what I consider the toughest corner of the track, turn 9. It's got a crested turn-in, it's off camber, and the barriers on the exit are very close. No matter which way you lose it, it's likely you'll be catching damage. Then, into the penultimate turn, drivers will need a big lift and a fair amount of accuracy to carry speed through it. That takes us to the final corner, where it's almost like a street course. Understeer and you'll be digging your car out of the tires. But hopefully, if you've kept it all together, you've now finished a lap around Watkins Glen. You see a lap up and around the hills of Watkins Glen. And as always, today's race here at Watkins Glen is brought to you by SIMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at simsa.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products create an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. The winner of Division 1 here in the PRL GTE Sportscar Series will get a ButtKicker Gamer 2 or a simulation kit. Also, both drivers of the winning team in the team's championship will get a free t-shirt. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Let's take a look at the championships, though, Nick. We've got one round under our hands, so it's obviously put some points on the board.
Yeah, it puts some points on the board, and it also makes things pretty tight up there at the top of things. And you're seeing a lot of new names, new faces in this series. Provides for some great competition. Abner Acosta getting the win last week in round 1. He is going to be at the top of the board in his BMW. The Ford of Dino Filippo there in second, 4 points back, then 6, 8, and 10. You're going to see some more familiar names from last season, like Andres Espinosa, Zach Hefner, and Christian Eisler. Still very early in the season, however. If you're looking for names that were at the top of the board last year, like Carl Modoff and Sean Macbeth, you're going to have to look down to 11th and 12th. That's where they are, so they've got some fighting to do. But we also have a teams championship that they, and as well as everyone else on track, are fighting for. That is just as competitive to start off the year. Rincon V Racer is at the top of that with Felipe and Borda. They have 55 points after last week. Obsidian Racing with Acosta and Diaz. They took home the win. Not the most overall points, though. They're only going to be 2 points back. RSR Esports going to be right behind them. 6 points back, then just 1 point further back, we see our first Speedworks Racing team. That was the East team. Remember, they dominated the points last year, the team points last year, with SRT West in 5th.
Thanks for that update, Nick. And we always get to enjoy this series, of course, on the iRacing Esports Network. As always, make sure and subscribe to the channel when you get the opportunity. Of course, all you got to do is go to their YouTube page and click subscribe, and you'll get all of this in your YouTube feed. Today's race itself is, of course, round 2, as we mentioned. They do have drop weeks in this series, one drop week to be specific, of the 10 rounds, so they can have a bad race like we saw a couple of the front runners have last time, and they can still come back into this thing. They have upped the distance this season. Remember, it was 45 minutes for a long time. It is now 60 minutes for every round. And as always, there is one scheduled pit stop because of the fuel cells being limited compared to what the real ones can do. There you see the 4 different makes of car that they can choose that are all of the GTE class. They have an incident cap of 24 in the series because of the 60-minute race. So I believe that was upped a little bit compared to what it was in previous seasons. No spare car as well if you have any sort of accident. Hopefully we won't have too many of those, as this is a very punishing track out here. But Nick, we've been talking about it, and well, it just seems like things have been turned a little bit upside down, but I think it looks like our provisional pole sitter might be able to find himself a little bit of redemption. Caraballo sat on pole last time in Monza, and he's back there again, though we've still got some time left in qualifying.
Yeah, Caraballo not having the... he had the start to the race he wanted, but the DNF after that incident last week at Monza, very disappointing race for him, how that went. He definitely would like to find some redemption. Also, Michael Diaz in second. There's a name that is contending right now in the team's championships with Obsidian Racing. He's back in 14th, though, in the points. So we haven't really seen him up there in contention with that much speed yet this season, so it's good to see him up there as well. And just as I say that, looks like Carl Modoff is back on top.
Ooh, pole now goes back to the Porsche, the very multicolored Porsche this season, the 948, working his way around. Try at least 1 or 2 more times here for a hot one. Caraballo still on the front row, so it's not dire yet. That's a good point about Diaz. Diaz was challenging for the win and actually led a few laps back at Monza. It was, if anything, a mistake both on track that lost him the lead, and then what lost him the podium was a pit error where he had to take more fuel at the very end. So Michael Diaz, who's currently in third, needs to get himself back with a better finish here in round 2 if he hopes to do something in the championship. Caraballo trying to respond. He's about a 10.5 back from Modov. Let's see what he's got this time by. A 42.7. 2/10 quicker is indeed good enough to put him back on the pole. It is getting to be a slugfest here in qualifying.
And you know what else I noticed with that slugfest we're seeing in qualifying is Karl Modov last season, he liked to wait until the very end of qualifying to put his time in. Well, that didn't work too well for him last week. Kind of had a couple mistakes in the qualifying lap. This week, though, I think he has seen just how much competition has ramped up in this series, and he's going out there pretty early in qualifying to contend with these guys.
You know, I couldn't help but grin when I hopped into this practice session as we got ready for this broadcast and was kind of looking out, and I noticed, oh, Modov is here a lot earlier than usual. So he, yeah, I agree. I think that made an impact on him, how much he got trounced and pushed around being back in the midfield. He did not improve on his last lap, so he stays in second place. He can still get around, I think, in time for one more flying lap. Abner Acosta, our winner from last round, is starting on the second row currently. He's working his way through the inner loop and now the outer loop, but all the way back in fourth. Wonder if he's got anything more in this BMW.
Looks like the BMWs are pretty strong. Caraballo, actually he's in a Ferrari, so scratch that. But Diaz up there in third and Acosta in fourth.
Yeah,
they showed a lot of speed in practice as well.
3 Bimmers in the top 10 right now. Jorge Flores has got his in 10th place back there. Watching Acosta come towards the heel of the boot. He's trailing a slower car. This is Rodrigo Munoz. Wonder if he's going to hold him up at all here in the qualifying. He's starting to get close, and these are aero-sensitive cars, these GTE machines. So he could yet be losing time. Back onto the main course. He is using every inch of track, though. Flirting with the grass in certain places here.
Flirting with the grass and also flirting with those off tracks that would disallow your qualifying time. Looks like he's going to be able to put this one in, though.
But he's not faster. It's about a 10th off of his fastest time. This should be his last attempt at it, based on how much time left is on the clock. Checking to see. Caraballo just started his most recent lap, and I think Karl Modov has time for this one and one more. Diaz, I believe... Oh, no, Diaz is done. Because I just saw Diaz go off and straight through the pit lane. Unless he's just on a in-between lap here. Ooh, here's a name that we were expecting to be doing well last time and didn't have a good race. Sean Macbeth is in 5th currently, so he's found some pace. Borda is currently in 13th, but now make that P8 with this 143.1. Taking a glance at Macbeth, who's coming around to finish his lap. 143.1 is his fastest. He is 4/10 off our pole sitter. Could he manage? Oh, and he gets bumped to 6th just now. Now he crosses the line, but that one did not count. He's got enough time to finish this next lap if he takes it. Watching Jared Jewell all the way down in 17th. This car does a 143.4, so he does go faster. That puts him in P14 just as we get the checkered flag out. Michael Diaz is coming across, and as I said, that lap was discounted, so he waited just a hair too long. Caraballo responds, a 142.6. He puts himself back on pole. Who else do we have coming across the line? See Christian Eisler coming up. He's well down in 10th position. No, the Iceman tends to have his own cheering squad in the peanut gallery. Let's see if they've been able to cheer him faster. Nope. A 1:43.2 is not going to give him a better position. What about Karl Modhoff? He's coming around now. He sits on the front row, but he is on the outside of it. A 1:42.759, less than a tenth slower than the 827 car. A 1:42.699 is 1/100th of a second slower than pole. My goodness, blink and you missed it.
Looks like Jorge Flores also coming along. He's back in 11th. There's more big names that are back there, even outside the top 10 from last season.
That's wild to see.
Oh, he's going to move up to 5th with that, so that's a big jump up for him.
The jump ahead of Sean Macbeth, who came across and did not improve. So let's go back to 18th here. Sebastian Maciera, I believe. Is he the last one? I think he might just be. Not sure if Arian has already completed his lap. We'll find out in a moment. He's behind him on track. But Sebastian comes across. He's only had 2 timed laps that have counted. And unfortunately, this last one, looks like both of these drivers have already crossed the start-finish line. So that is everybody done here today for qualifying for round 2 of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series, brought to you both by Simsa.net and Butt Kicker. On the pole for today, it's going to be Moises A. Caraballo, who will be starting from the front by a scant 13 thousandths of a second over Karl Modhoff. I think we got a rivalry brewing here, depending on how this race goes. Dino Filippa starts P3 with Michael Diaz, who just missed out on a podium last week, starting 4th. Jorge Flores will be P5. Last week's winner, Abner Acosta, all the way back in 6th position. Can he run his way to the front? Sean Macbeth manages to put the car in 7th with Justin Rame in 8th. Fernando Borda starts P9. Andre Espinoza rounds out your top 10.
Right behind them, Christian Eisler, just by another 100th of a second. It's going to be back with Zach Hefner in the 1-2-3 car, back in 11th and 12th. Pablo Uribe is going to be in 13th. Jared Jewell in 14th. Tony Costello will round out the top 15 with Pete Mobrotten up in 16th alongside of him. Anthony Pisano and Sebastian Maciera will make up row number 9, with row number 10 going to be Jeffrey Arroyan and Leif Peterson.
Matthew Hall will be starting 21st with Cristobal Valenzuela behind him in 22nd. Then in the next row, it is Michael Stogbauer in 23rd. Tyler Gilmette will be starting P24th and Matthew Tina in 25th. On his outside, it is Rodrigo Munoz in P26. Josh Daniels starts 27th, and then Cody Bauman in 28th. Kenny Rodriguez will be 29th. Takeshi Kita 30th, and Joey Trungale is the last driver to put a time in 31st. Jerome Bertome, I do not believe he is going to be racing. I don't see him out on track. Let's see if he decides to get out there. He helps run this league, so he puts a lot of work in. Not sure if he has the time to actually get on track for this round, or if he's got to play steward today. You can see them all lining up behind the Porsche pace car before we go for a pace lap today. This could be a critical one in this championship, Nick. Only one drop round, and we've seen very fast drivers have to essentially use that up in week 1.
Yeah, especially Moises Caraballo. That's the name that sticks out right there out of the DNFs from last week. Definitely not the start to the season he wants to have up there in the 827, but he's obviously got a lot of speed. This is his 2nd week in a row on the front row.
One driver I've noticed came into practice a little late and has not performed that well in qualifying is Zach Hefner. He did decently. I believe he finished with the top 5 in the first round, and him being all the way back in 12th to me says that maybe he just isn't quite comfortable, didn't get enough practice in to figure out the pace that he wants in that Ferrari. So hopefully Zach Hefner can climb forward and get the result that he needs. But they follow the pace car up through the S's. I am a little bit concerned. This is the first division, Division 1. that is racing that we're broadcasted here. They have two divisions. The Division 2 is essentially the amateur division. But even with all this talent that we've got, Nick, there is always the ever-present danger in these S's of a track blockage.
Yeah, especially on that first lap. You have something go wrong, especially up front when competition is so tight, similar to what we saw last week at Monza with Carballo on the first lap. Very, very tricky stuff, and especially back in 10th or 15th or 20th, you have no idea what's coming around the corner up there through the S's.
Hopefully it's not a nasty surprise, especially right here in the inner loop. That can catch a number of people out. Even the best drivers seem to struggle through that double chicane. They swing back downhill out of the carousel and into the long version. NASCAR might cut right, but sports cars, they go straight, and they hang a left here into the boot through the chute. It's really, to me, this is a portion that demonstrates how old school this track is. A modern course, I feel like, this is a fairly fast corner coming into there, and there's just no runoff.
Yeah, it's very sketchy. I can't imagine what that feels like in the real world. In the sim world, it will get the hair on the back of your neck to stick up when you go skirting in there.
Yeah, no doubt. It amazes me the bravery that some real-world drivers have winging a car around here. Already the leaders heading back up out of the toe into the heel of the boot. I was saying before the broadcast, I actually really like the new paint scheme that we've got on Karl Modov's car. Very eye-catching, very pretty, and hopefully it will catch the eye of the drivers he's racing with to allow him a win. We'll see whether or not that distraction will work or not. They come back onto the main course. Moises Carballo to his inside when they get going. Which one of them is faster over race pace? They'll have 60 minutes to try and determine that. They come through the penultimate corner, fast sweeping left-hander with quite a bit of banking. And then the street course-like final turn, that arm coat right at the edge of the circuit. The Porsche pace car gets ready to peel in to give control over to Carballo. He does not wait at all. He immediately streams away. And already our top three form a single file line as they come down into the first corner, but there's a battle for third behind them. Filippa challenged by Diaz. Everybody hits the 90, and I think we are mostly clean.
A little bit of contact further back, but nothing too severe. They head up through the S's, mostly single file up front, and it looks like Karl Modov already getting a big slipstream off the back of Carballo as they head down into the bus stop.
I think everybody's looking pretty good through the S's, thankfully. A few drivers battling farther back. Borda is going side by side, and there's some door banging back for 7th place. That was with Justin Rame and a team of Speedworks cars who are hassling the poor Fernando Borda.
They are still side by side. Espinosa, Macbeth, the other two involved in that.
Aggressive racing at the start, and this is already costing them time. He almost turns Justin Rame as he tries to drift back to the racing line. Rame manages to pull out of the way, but as he pulls around the outside of the toe of the boot, he loses out. Fernando Borda does not get a good run, so here we go again. 7th place, one of the most hotly contested 7th places I've ever seen on the opening lap. Out of the heel of the boot, neither driver is willing to give way. The inside's going to go back to Rame. Up and over the awkward camber of turn 9. Getting a nose ahead. Fernando Borda is trying to seal the deal and put this one to bed, and I think he's finally got it.
Yeah, on the outside there of turn 11, a little bit of sliding further back.
Yeah, Zach Hefner had a big slide, and I
Hefner.
think, did Rame get in the wall there? Looked like,
Very well may have, yeah.
I think he pancaked the outside of the car, trying to come through that right-hander, but everybody's still continuing on. Let's take a look at the replay and confirm.
He did, and this was actually in a good spot because it was actually the tire barrier. And that's such a tricky part because that tire barrier goes from that wider section to that skinnier section. If he had caught that just a couple of feet later, that would have hooked him.
Watch him on board. Oh, wow. Just understeered right into it. As we come back to Rame, he's now behind his teammate Macbeth as well as Borda. Come through the boot for the second time. All three Speedworks cars in a row from 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Back up front, Caraballo continues to lead. Modoff has broken off a little bit of a breakaway with him. Diaz back in third, but by pretty far. So a bit of a two-car breakaway at the front for now. Modoff and Caraballo. About a 2.5 second gap back to third. And single file after that. It's Felipa in fourth, rather. Flores and Acosta. Last week's winner at Monza, of course. Let's go on board with Flores here. He goes a little bit wide out of the 90. And now up through the S's. Going to have a challenge to the inside from Abner Acosta. I think Acosta might have that position as they head down to the bus stop. Actually, they're going to be side by side still.
Yeah, Flores running hard on that outside. And unfortunately, it's not going to be the desired line on their way into the inner loop. Looks like Acosta will indeed seal the deal. That moves him into the top 5. Last round's winner, looking to see if he can make it 2 for 2, but he's already nearly 4.5 seconds behind our top driver. Ooh, man, we got a lot of action back around 11th place. Christian Eisler in a hornet's nest that's being led by Espinoza. Rame is in there. Hefner is behind him. Look at this absolute train. Jewel, Uribe, Mo Broughton, Costello, Arroyan. This goes all the way back to 20th place.
Yeah, it looks like about a 12-car breakaway here, a 12-car section of the track.
All plugged up behind 9th place Andre Espinoza and his Speedworks Porsche, Ferrari. So far, nobody able to do anything among here, but I imagine this is going to be one heck of a chain reaction if someone makes a move onto the front stretch. Espinoza actually managing to pull away from Justin Rame behind him.
One of the most iconic parts of the original Watkins Glen street circuit was the railroad track, so not too surprising to see some freight trains around here.
It's true. As we jump up ahead of them, where Macbeth managed to get by Borda. I think we saw a glimpse of that on screen even. It was down into the 90, but looks like Borda's going to try and retake this one. Defensive move down the back stretch by Macbeth is going to put the kibosh on that.
I think Borda may have checked up a little bit there. He must not have felt too confident with the slight advantage he had over Macbeth there. They head through the carousel.
Going on board with Espinoza, looking up at these two. Well, I thought he was the cork in the bottle, but he seems to have caught these two in front of him as he rocks up to the back of Borda's Ferrari. And is it just me? Did Acosta just recently get 4th place now? Wasn't he in 5th just a moment ago?
Yeah, it looks like he's gotten around Felipa and, well, that's Flores back there in 6th. But yeah, Acosta has just gotten around the Dino Felipa for that position.
Don't need a... Oh, well, I guess we are going to get a replay here. It was down in the 90 that it happened. Got to run on him. Look to the inside. Ooh, very nicely done. Textbook maneuver. So
yeah, not as easy of a turn as you would think to get a pass done. That I mean, it's really deep banking into there. So the outside sometimes has a better run off the corner there, depending on how much of a run you have and how much you pinch the other guy down.
Meanwhile, on the screen, We are watching the fight between Felipa and Acosta, who we ride on the gearbox for. Just back down the way, you can see Flores in 6th position, just trailing these two.
Ooh, is that Espinoza that's just gone off?
And what? Yeah, let's see.
He was running with Fernando Borda. This was for 8th place, headed down into the inner loop. And it looks like Borda was making a, or I'm sorry, that was Espinoza on the inside making the move.
Sorry, we're a little bit behind here. We'll need to fast forward. So Espinoza still going, and actually still side by side now with Michael Stogbauer, who gave us a lot of excitement at Monza, but Michael's not able to hold on to the spot as they come through the heel of the boot. Still have quite a bit of racing left to go here. 51 minutes left on the clock in this 60-minute race. Moises Caraballo is still your leader and significantly has pulled a big gap over Karl Modoff. 2 seconds. Not often that we can see drivers pull away from Karl quite like this.
Yeah, and it's been a growing gap as well. Every time I look up there, it seems like Modoff has lost more and more, and that's also allowed Diaz to close in on him. 4 seconds from 3rd place to 45 of Michael Diaz. Looks like he might be catching Modoff here soon.
Back to Diaz. This BMW trying to reel in the Porsche. This is a good sign, at least for the people who never like to hear that hated word of BOP. We've got a Ferrari, a Porsche, and a BMW in your top 3 right now.
And a Ford in 5th.
Yeah, so we've got 4 different makes in the top 5. That is a good sign. And I think Diaz is continuing to close. That gap looks to be shrinking. Coming back to the main course, up and around the off-camber turn 9. And indeed, it was blinking down for about 0.7 of a second for a moment. Now it's back up to 0.8 of a second. Up to Modoff from Diaz. Oh, we got a lot of action back in 10th. A swap of positions, I think. Christian Eisler and Justin Rehm just switching around there. Zach Hefner rocks up behind Justin now. Ferrari's got a good run, but Justin going slightly defensive. Or is this an attack? It's an attack. It's down into the 90. Gets his nose in on that orange and white Ferrari, but Eisler able to accelerate off the corner. Look at how much this checked up the cars behind. Hefner now alongside. Jared Jewell had no place to go. And then there's another Bushfink car, Uribe, in the mix.
Still going to be side by side down the backstretch. Hefner going to have, well, he's going to be to the inside. I'm not sure if that's where you want to be. Looks like he's going to be able to clear Justin Rehm. Rehm slides just in front of Jared Jewell to defend him, but Jewell tucked right underneath that rear wing of the 912.
I was a little worried that Jewell actually cut the course on his way into the inner loop, but it looks like he avoided that. He certainly took a lot of grass along the way. He's dropped back slightly as he continues to follow in 12th position behind him. A whole slew of cars are impatiently looking for an opportunity to get by him as well if he makes a mistake. Uribe is in there, Mo Broughton, Costello, Aronia, Pisano, Maciera, Espinoza, Stogbauer, all of them.
Looks like one driver, especially the last couple of turns, that's been looking to the inside is Tony Costello back in the Speedworks Racing team, and he's going to look again. That's on the inside of Pete Mo Broughton.
Doesn't work out. So we're going to watch from on board Costello's perspective, looking from the roof of the car. He regroups, tries to get himself a launch. Oh, we got a car spinning. That was Rain coming out of the final corner. And it was all on his own.
Might have tagged the outside grass, maybe?
Just barely clipped it. You could see he was trying to catch it immediately and touch the wall slightly.
Not too much cosmetic damage to the car, but definitely a lot of ground it lost.
Yeah,
For a
that put
driver
him...
that was in the top 10.
That actually put him at the very back of the field. We've had no DNFs. So he is dead last of all cars running. Meanwhile, let's go up to Espinoza once again. This is in 17th. We got 2x2 down into the chute, and it doesn't work out. I spoke too soon. Cars into the wall. Everybody trying to avoid one turned around. That was Maciera, who is stuck in a horrible spot, and he almost gets hit again. In fact, he is going to get hit. Oh, that was Cody Bauman, unfortunately, on the outside line with no place to go. We're probably going to need
This was ugly.
a blimp view for this one to dissect this. This is, yeah. Just too many cars on too many different lines and a very fast and difficult corner.
It all started down into the boot. Maciera just tagging Anthony Pisano, checking up for Mo Broughton right in front of him. And then that's when guys like Espinoza, Stogbauer piled in there. Actually, Stogbauer barely squeaked through there.
You can see Maciera was trying to figure out what to do with all this, because here he thinks I've got room to the inside to get it going, but then all of a sudden cars are coming along. So we come back live. Sebastian now our last car running. And yet we managed to avoid any DNFs so far. I guess nobody got hit hard enough that they need to come in and take significant repairs. So all 31 cars are on track. 19th, we got a nice little battle that's going to be unfortunately split up somewhat. Pisano cuts the course and takes a tow. Well, that was bizarre. Meanwhile, battle continues on screen. Sorry.
He may not have. I don't know if he had any damage. I know he was involved in that incident prior. He might have just wanted to get to the pits. But yeah, right now Munoz trying to hold off, and Andres Espinoza, who's trying to fight his way back up through the field. He goes a little wide there through the uphill right-hander.
Again, that's Valenzuela and the BMW behind them. Number 33 sitting in 20th position, could get 2 for 1 depending on if these two continue to fight like this.
Teammates to Munoz as well.
Boy, a little bit of a sandwich there for Espinoza. He comes off of turn 9. We should be getting to the pit window, within about the next 10 minutes or so, I believe. So come off the final turn, back onto the front stretch. These three sort of a little bit of a stalemate here. Checking in on that battle for second place that we were looking at before. Diaz now down to about 6/10, but it is very, very small increments that he's been catching Modov.
Yeah, Modov's been falling back. He's back to 3 seconds back behind Caraballo now for the lead.
In fact, let's take a look at their last few laps and see exactly how each of them has been doing. And indeed, look at that. The only lap that Diaz was slower was the most recent one. Everyone before that, he was just chipping away, chipping away. Into the heel of the boot. BMW versus Porsche. It's worth noting as well that Abner Acosta is only about 2 seconds back from Diaz. So he hasn't dropped off by a significant amount. In fact, you keep getting glances of him in the background there as now we hop on board.
Yeah, ever since he got by Dino Filippa there for 4th, he's really been catching them.
At least trying to catch them. If Diaz gets up to the back of Modov, that could certainly help. Because if they start fighting, Abner Acosta will really start to gain some ground. So this began with quite a lot of aggressive racing, some fantastic battles, some side-by-side action, and even a few wrecks. And it looks like it's cooling down a little bit. Everybody's kind of settling into a piece of track on their own. Nice little battle happening for 8th between Borda and Eisler. Bushfink driver trying to stalk his fellow Ferrari, as he also has got a mirror full of Zach Hefner, don't forget. On board the Rincon car.
Looks like these three are pretty evenly matched up through the boot. Eisler going a little bit wide, but you can take a lot of different lines through that turn right there.
And for none of these drivers was it terribly faster than the other. They now hit the heel of the boot. Coming across the track, switching back to the right side. And back onto the main circuit over the crest where the car starts to lose grip. And way off the apex for Christian Eisler through there. That allows Hefner to gain a fair bit of ground on the car ahead.
On board with Hefner.
We have something down the front stretch here. I think he's a little too far back.
Is it just me here? Does Borda have a little bit of left side body damage?
I believe, wasn't Borda the one that had the side-to-side contact
Yeah, he probably
in the very
had
first lap?
Yeah, he's got to have some, a little bit of, it looks like it got pushed in just a little bit in front of the left rear tire.
Here goes Hefner. Nope. He says, no, I'm not. He backs off in a straight line. So nothing doing this time. He's content to sit back there.
Ooh, they were side by side behind him though for 10th or for 11th rather.
Yeah,
Pablo Uribe and Jared Jewell. Looks like Uribe just getting by him.
He did. He got the pass done coming up to the inner loop. Now he's trying to come back at him. This has allowed Tony Costello to join the fray, with Jeffrey Arroyan having dreams of trying to get involved, maybe get into the top 10 himself. Just a little bit too far back to be considered quite a part of the battle, but he is certainly hovering around. And Uribe up at the front of the train, trying to shake it off.
These guys back here having the same problem as the three cars in front of them. They're all pretty fast and clean right now, just not considerably faster than anyone else in their battle.
Oh, and Diaz has gained a ton of ground recently. Look at this. He is now within 0.3 of a second on Karl Modov as they climb up the hill. Is this enough for the draft to give him an opportunity? He's starting to close in. It's 1 car length, less than a car length. He's rocked up to the gearbox, but not quick enough.
He's going to hold off that time. I think he knows that he's got him, though. He's just trying to set him up for the perfect opportunity. Through the carousel, see Modov going a little bit wide, maybe checking his mirrors a little bit.
Certainly he's got to be a little bit wary at this point, knowing that Diaz has run him down like this. Oh, wow, he is awful close. I'm not sure that he'd even wait for the backstretch. As close as he's riding now, he could have a go at, honestly, any hard braking zone.
Well, they're going to have one here in a moment. Doesn't look like he's going to step out, though. He could easily to the right, but no, he's going to wait. I highly doubt he's going to want to get him here.
Yeah, it looks like he will, in fact, stay patient, at least till the front stretch.
Yeah, he could duck out into turn number 1, down into 90. That might cause some side-by-side up through the S's, though.
Well, that'll be music to the ears of Abner Acosta behind them. As they come around the final turn, it almost kind of looks like Modoff is turning the wick back up because he's pulled a little bit more of a gap than what he had just a few corners to go, and that'll keep him safe down into the 90 because Diaz not nearly close enough to attack.
They both go on over the runoff there. Yeah, Modoff looks really good here on these faster parts. Down into the boot, though, it looks like Diaz has the advantage. Might be something in the setups as well.
It's close once again, but this is looking a lot like last time. Very much like last time because Diaz does not attempt anything. Although we should know, thinking back on the last race, Diaz just hung back behind Acosta for a long time, saving fuel.
True. That is definitely probably in the minds of at least some people. It looks like it's in the mind of Michael Diaz. We are almost halfway through this race with one pit stop and a limited fuel cell.
Here's hoping he's fixed his calculator since then, but back in 9th place, Fernando Borda trying to hold off Eisler and Hefner still. That has not changed position since we last looked, but it has certainly remained a sticky point for these drivers. And in fact, Hefner getting awful close to the back of Eisler, up and through the toe of the boot.
I keep seeing Hefner stick a little wheel in the grass once or twice. Hopefully he's not racking up the incident points.
Yeah, he can get disqualified. That's a good point. Not a track that you often worry about those. Bushfink car once again finding trouble, turning its way down to the apex. 35 minutes left. We should start to see a few drivers come in for early pit stops, I would assume.
Yeah, you mentioned Watkins Glen. Not a track you normally see incident points get racked up at. Well, I don't think Monza is notorious for that either. And we had 2 or 3 cars last week finish above 20 incident points, and they only have a 24 incident limit cap. In fact, one driver, I can't recall who it was, finished with 23, so just barely hung on there.
Whew. That was flirting with disaster here for sure, for him to get that close, but we've gone back to 2nd and 3rd. The Porsche that you see, the multicolored Porsche, is Karl Modoff. The black, white, and red machine, the BMW, is Michael Diaz in the number 45. Now, though they haven't been battling, Abner Acosta has cut this down. It is 1.8 seconds back to 4th place. There you see the gap on screen.
Yeah, he continues just to ride in his wake, but...
Yeah, either he is saving fuel or he is just putting the screws to Karl Modoff to try and see if he can elicit an error. So far, it's not been working. I'd definitely say the faster of the two would be that BMW for the moment. Since the start of the race, we have only had 2 DNFs. Sebastian Masieta apparently had too much to continue from his part in that incident, and Anthony Pisano as well has come in and retired. 29 drivers are still out on track and running. Back to Pablo Uribe ahead of Jared Jewell. Tony Costello at the back of this trio in his Speedworks Porsche. They weave their way up the hill through the S's and onto the backstretch. Jewell gets himself a handy little run. Uribe knows it. He places that Bushfink car smack dab in the middle and denies any opportunity for Jared to have an overtake. Right on board now with Uribe looking back.
Uribe in a Ferrari this season. Wasn't a Ford last season.
Yeah, I'm looking through. I believe we've only got 2 Fords that started this race. 3 Fords, I think.
Yeah,
Nope,
and
I was right, 2.
I was about to make a comment. Uribe not anymore the lonely Ford out there, but it looks like he switched to a Ferrari, so.
Almost at halfway through this race. This is looking like, now that everybody's kind of gotten mostly single file, that the passing is somewhat difficult out here.
Yeah, well, these turns are so fast, and it's so hard to, since you have to carry all your momentum through the turns, it's so hard to gain an advantage over the guy in front of you. You need to have him make a mistake, or pressure him into a mistake, or have something go your way. Because you might be faster than him, but he's going to be, also pretty fast through the turn. It's not like we have too many low-speed corners here.
Back up to our second and third place battle. Modov staying ahead of Diaz. And I can tell you, I think we've had our first scheduled stop happen as Josh Daniels, we don't need to go to it. He's well down the order. One of our back markers trying a slightly different strategy. I can also tell you that a change for 14th position happened as Royan was passed by Stogbauer for that one. Yeah, I'm starting to think that we're seeing...
Oh, Takeshi Kita just slammed the outside wall coming out of the inner loop. This was an odd incident. He was chasing down Matthew Tina for 21st.
Yeah, but there was
Watch that. Just snaps
no
into
real,
it.
yeah, contact or anything. Looks like the curb, maybe. Off that onboard, at least. It seems like it bounced maybe a little weird, and Kita returns to the track in 25th. But I was going to say before that happened, but with Diaz, it almost feels like we're seeing Derlica Mark II here. He is happy to just play this fuel strategy game.
Yeah, and that definitely worked out for Jesper Derlica a lot of times in the past. Didn't work out for Diaz last week at Monza, but I'm sure he learned quite a bit in that race as well.
You would hope. If he didn't, then we're in for another very sad ending to this race for poor Michael Diaz. And if you take a glance behind these cars, Abner Acosta, who was over 2 seconds behind them many laps ago, has cut it down to 1 second. So Abner is a little bit faster than these two for the time being. Wonder if there's enough of a gap for him back in the pack that he could make a stop and try to pass them with strategy, considering he's been faster so far. Maybe even Michael Diaz could do that.
Yeah, Michael Diaz and Abner Acosta, teammates here. They tried to work together last week as well. That didn't work out, of course, for Diaz, as we mentioned previously, but looks like we might be able to see some team strategies play out here.
This battle continues to rage on, and we've only had one scheduled stop so far. Takeshi Kita, because of his damage, by the way, did have to come in. We do still have that battle back in P7. It hasn't changed around yet. Borda still ahead of Hefner. Actually, no. Did we see the pass between Hefner and Eisler? I'm not sure that we did. We might see another one right here because Zach's got to run up the backstretch. He's forced Borda to pick the inside for a defensive line. He's got to nose ahead, and he breaks later to take away that 7th position. Make that 8th, excuse me.
Fantastic move there. Let's see if Borda's going to have anything else for him. Eisler behind them. He's that third car watching on as they head down into the boot.
Hefner, I got to admit, has been pretty patient today because it seems like he's had pace, but it doesn't seem like he's really forcing any overly aggressive moves. He's just kind of picking them off bit by bit and climbing through the field. Remember, he started in 12th, and this most recent position is now 8th for him.
Kind of similar to what we saw him do last week, where it looked like he might maybe get a top 5 if he had some things go his way, and he ended up in 4th doing that, so things continuing to look good for Zach Hefner.
Haven't come across any lap traffic quite yet. Our leader Caballo still has a long time to go before he gets to the last car on the lead lap, which is Justin Rame.
Yeah, Carballo with a big lead, over 4 seconds over Karl Modoff now. He hasn't, like you said, hasn't seen any lap traffic. I don't think we've had enough pitters for that yet, but even if he does, unless they're really aggressively side by side, Watkins Glen not typically a track where you struggle too much with that. I think Carballo could afford to go around the outside of one of these turns as well.
You know, it just hit me when I called that Justin Rame was the last car on the lead lap. I was like, how did he get back there? Apparently, he took a pit stop when we weren't looking. So the 912 is done with his stop and good to go until the end. Munoz also in. There you see on screen. There he is done. Got his fuel and off to go racing once more. Cody Bauman also takes a stop. Very few cars still in. Down in 11th, the Bushfink car, the orange, yellow, and black. That is the Ferrari of Pablo Uribe. He is leading. Jared Jewell, Tony Costello, Michael Stogbauer, Jeffrey Arroyan, and Pete Mobrotten, going all the way back to 16th.
Yeah, we've seen a freight train back here for most of the race, but this one pretty spaced out. Looks like most of them have about a second in between one another. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw some of them try to jump each other in the pits with that little of a gap.
Certainly would be something I would be considering at this point. 25 minutes left to go. Might as well go now. We got not a whole lot to lose. In fact, that would, I believe, make some of them the highest pitter if they do that. We move back to second place. Modoff still trailing Diaz, who we believe might be mooching a little bit of slipstream to save fuel. Acosta has fallen off them slightly. He was 1.2 seconds, is now back up to 1.5. Either these two have responded, or Acosta is losing out on pace.
He has got really close there to the back of Modoff that turn. We saw it there on board as they head uphill.
Really curious to see if Diaz pits earlier than Modoff, or if he pits at the same time, or is he just going to take it as absolutely late as possible to save as much fuel as he can. Well, he's definitely staying in the slipstream, as there's a little bit of a weave from Karl Modoff down the front stretch, and Michael Diaz was having a little bit of monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, Modoff definitely knows what's up here. He knows that Diaz probably a little bit faster than him, but he's decided to stay back, not only save fuel, but also pressure Modoff for the last half of the race so far.
Looks like Tony Costello for Speedworks is coming down pit lane.
I like that call. He was back in that group of cars. Might be able to jump someone like Mo Broughton. Well, he just looks like slid his stall, it looks like a little bit.
waits patiently. Oh, and did Borda get overtaken by Eisler? Yes, he did. So Hefner's left Borda behind, and now Eisler has managed to move himself up into ninth ahead of Fernando.
Take a look at this again. That was a good move, it looked like.
Just slipstreamed him.
Yeah. Classic.
Now,
And
can
you-
he leave Borda behind is the question, because Hefner certainly did. It is a big gap, frankly.
Yeah, they've been pretty attached to the hip for most of this race. Just when one of the other gaps, it seems like they're right back together. And while that was happening, we wondered about lap traffic. It looks like Carballo got around Cody Bauman to put him a lap down. So might be running into a little bit of traffic now.
That's one, but the next car up the road is
far.
Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a long ways up. Oh, and we got one of our front runners taken to the pits. It is Sean Macbeth, followed by Jorge Flores. This is two Speedworks drivers. Looks like Uribe is going to follow suit. So is Stogbauer. Highest pitter right now is Tony Costello. He's coming around turn 9. Also being chased by Joey Trungell, but Joey has yet to take a stop. Macbeth is out and done. I think he should now inherit the highest pitter position that we were just talking about, and indeed, he does handily. That puts him into 14th.
Wondering if this is going to eventually trigger anything for the leaders in their pit strategy, or at least the front runners. Caraballo.
Yeah, with this new race length, I'm not entirely sure what to expect on the pit window. We have an inkling, obviously, but
Yeah, I don't know if the drivers know either. I think that's so early into the season, they don't really know how to approach it. I'm sure
Caballo's
later
in.
on- Yeah, he is in. And
So it's
Modoff and Diaz and Acosta.
So this must be the end of that pit
Everyone,
window.
Felipe.
Diaz, I think, is the one to watch. He's been hanging out behind Carl Modoff's rear wing for many laps at this point.
Well, remember last week as well, we mentioned it earlier, he got a good jump out of the pits. We thought that was good for him. Turned out not so much.
Everybody down and into their stalls. Oh,
Ooh,
but
Felipe.
somebody missed it. Yep, that was Felipe. Just running a little too far, and no surprise, Caraballo the first out. But Diaz not out ahead of Carl Modoff. Now he's got to do it on track.
Looks like this might have actually put bigger gaps in between these three cars. Acosta might have closed into Diaz a little bit. Good stop for Modoff. Oh, but Diaz already looking like he's catching up to him.
Well, I want to know, how aggressive is Michael going to be now? Because last time we saw the pass made in the pits at Monza. So does he have the chops to go wheel to wheel with a two-time champion? Two-time champion and one-time runner-up as well, don't forget. So essentially 3 seasons in a row that Modoff has not finished lower than second in the championship.
He's closing in a hurry.
He's keeping with him. I believe we have 2 cars that need to pit, and that is Hefner and Eisler, who are drivers. I didn't notice that it didn't seem like they were drastically saving fuel, but they've gone a lap better than everybody else around them, as Hef now comes in, followed by the Iceman.
And their battle is going to continue with this.
And it'll hand the lead back to Caraballo. Now, both Hef and Eisler were trying to get by. It was It was Flores, wasn't it? No, it was Borda. Where is Borda, actually?
Looks like Borda's back in 10th.
And Hefner's already out. Eisler, though, is just getting out now. It's going to be really close between the two of them. In fact, a little bit of wheel spin from Christian Eisler off the pit lane. Does he have the momentum to keep Fernando Borda back? When he pitted, he was ahead. He'd like to stay that way. They reached the top of the S's, and Fernando Borda has a head of steam. I don't know that he's got quite enough, just feet away from a possible attempt to get himself into 9th. It is just not to be. Oh, but a big mistake. That's going to open the door. Can't turn into the carousel. Here comes Fernando Borda as the Iceman now has to give way.
Oh, it's still close.
He sticks his nose in, down into the chute, and somehow finds the run off the corner. I don't know how he carried the speed from off the inside. Now they hit the toe of the boot. Many people get hung out to dry the long way around of that toe.
Oh.
But he's not giving this one up.
Eisler practically moving him that time. He's going to be on the outside still, but if he can hang on to it here, he's going to have the inside going uphill. Even though he's going to have the inside, it's still an awkward... No, he's going to clear him before. It might be a crossover from Borda. Very aggressive racing going on back here.
I don't think Christian wants to give this one up. I think he is very determined to keep himself within the top 10. As they come onto the front stretch, he's got to fend him off for 16 whole minutes to get to the checkered flag.
They've got to get to the checkered flag first.
Let's check back in on Diaz because he's very, very close to the back of Modov. Make that in front of Modov. He makes the move down into the inner loop. Wow, that was sudden. Not sure that he's going to be able to make a move back on him. So let's take a look at the replay.
We weren't expecting it. We've been seeing him sit in line for about 20 minutes now. And yeah, like you said, out of nowhere. Even Modov went up high. He didn't think it was going to happen this lap.
Yeah, he kept the race in line, and with a good launch, Diaz just ducked it to the inside, outbraked him, and Michael back up to second place. Last time it was Acosta that he was trailing. This time it's Caraballo.
And we haven't seen Modov in this position when it comes to Michael Diaz either yet, so will he be able to answer? Maybe pull the same move that Diaz just pulled on him.
It's a good question. I don't know if necessarily they have slightly different setups on the car, maybe different downforce levels, top speed. This is all happening about 5 seconds behind our leader, Caraballo. Between these two, this is to settle the last 2 spots on the podium.
Yeah, Modov has seemed to be a little bit slower than Diaz, but if he can stay in that slipstream and get enough of a draft, he might be able to stay with him at least for 14 minutes.
Ooh,
looks like he's got a run here.
Yes, he does. And unlike Carl, Michael goes immediately defensive, fends off the middle of the road. Modov has nothing he can do.
Even though Diaz is going defensive there, that's allowing Modov to stick with him just a little bit longer. Don't know if he totally minds that for the time being.
And Acosta to close.
Yes.
Look at how close he's gotten.
I'm sure Diaz would love Acosta to get in front of Modov right now, even if he doesn't feel as much of a threat as he could. He'd love to have a teammate back there to be a buffer.
Absolutely, and it could go both ways because I'm sure that Acosta would like to get by with a little help from his friend, as Diaz could back Modov up into him. Down in 17th, got some action between Valenzuela, Mobrotten, and Munoz. That was a change for position as Valenzuela got ahead of Mobrotten.
This is the Andes QLS racing team that is sandwiching Mo Broughton right now.
And all 3 BMWs as well. The latest GTE car to join the service here on iRacing. Unfortunately, in its swan song in real life, at least from the factory teams. All 3 just going to be forming a nice little row for now. Because as we've seen from much of this race, drivers are able to get into a line, but it takes a phenomenal effort to get themselves a good enough runs out of somewhere to try and get it past done. And it usually happens either here down the front stretch or out of this corner. The first one, the 90, up to the back stretch and into the inner loop. And I think we might get another one right here.
Yeah, Mo Broughton's closing in on him.
A little bit wide out of that first corner from Valenzuela, causing him some regret. We ride on board with Pete. Pete gets right underneath the bumper and then ducks out to the left side onto the racing line. They both get onto the binders. Mo Broughton a little bit later onto them. He finds the apex, parks it there, and retakes P17.
Even with Cristobal going the defensive line, he's going to make that work. Now Cristobal's got Rodrigo Munoz behind him. Heck of a move there by Pete Mo Broughton.
I'd say that was brave stuff. I wasn't totally sure that he had the car woed up enough for the double chicane. But it all worked out in the end. Now less than 11 minutes to go. This is 2 drivers that we haven't looked at a whole lot. Costello and Arroyan. We saw them in the middle of a train before, but after the pit stops, they all split apart. This is now a battle for 14th position.
Arroyan trying to duck in behind that number 55 Porsche, the Speedworks Racing Team Porsche.
Fortunately, not nearly close enough. Both of them using quite a bit of that paved runoff, which is still fair game. Back up the hill now. He starts to regain in the slipstream, but Arroyan won't really be able to do anything serious. Costello still feels under threat. He's awful shallow into the inner loop, manages to make it through somehow. That had to be a difficult line into there, though.
Yeah, it didn't look like a comfortable racing line for either of them. Nor does this down into the boot. Especially Arroyan kind of off there. Going a little bit wide, a little bit shallow into the entrance. Now let's see what he does here. A little wide again through here. Might be able to close in on him, get on the gas a little earlier.
Certainly trying. Oh, and whoa, Arroyan disappearing for a hot minute. I glance over at my timing and scoring, then I glance back and I see a lone car, and I thought maybe I missed an accident. And boy, Jeffrey was off in the ether for a disturbing amount of time up the hill. Checking in on Christian Eisler, who had managed to get by Borda, but unlike his friend Hefner, who actually has overtaken another car, Hefner's up to 7th past Flores. Eisler's not been able to shake Fernando.
Yeah, Borda is back with him, and now you see them go through the bus stop. Borda tried to gain as much a draft as he could there on Eisler in front of him, but Eisler kind of weaving all around there on the backstretch a little bit.
Oh, and Arroyan just got by Costello. There's another backstretch move, another slipstream. If anything, almost looks like if we watch the replay here, keep an eye on Costello. He's in the green Porsche. It kind of looks like he brakes earlier lifts and just lets him through.
Yeah, it sounds like he lifts a little bit early. Might be going about half throttle down the backstretch. It's on board with him.
Yeah, that was a big old lift. He doesn't seem too interested in fighting that hard for a position that far down. He just wants to get to the end and get some points rather than risk the car. Plus, Royan very quickly running away from him, so I guess he saw the writing on the wall, unfortunately. This gives us an opportunity to jump to third because Karl Modoff has lost a little bit of touch with Diaz since he's gone by, and now you can see how much under attack he is from Abner Acosta.
Yeah, Acosta was slowly lurking back when Modoff and Diaz were fighting for so long, or at least running nose to tail, and now Acosta's into the picture. This time with Modoff, and this time for a podium position.
They've got no worries about what's behind. This pace for the top drivers has been phenomenal. It is 15 seconds from fourth back to fifth. So I think Modoff and Acosta have the green light to battle away. But they've only got 6 minutes to do it. I think if Acosta's going to make a move, he's got to do something relatively soon.
Yeah, it's not too many laps around here. Taking him off at about 143, 144.
And the distance between Diaz and Caraballo is 4.5 seconds. Actually, has he been faster?
Oh, he might have been. Yeah, that was about a 5-second lead, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 6 seconds, actually. At least when it was Modoff.
Unless Moises is just managing the gap.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, last time by, he was 0.3 quicker. Well, the plot thickens. Meanwhile, we continue to watch third place. The final spot on the podium. Modoff would probably like to finish on there for this second round to get his championship going. Costa's trying to deny him that pleasure. They go back downhill through the chute. Now into the toe of the boot. Ooh, he's getting really close through this set of corners. I think it was you that mentioned a little earlier that it seemed like Modoff maybe not as strong, at least compared to Diaz, through the boot section. And this is his teammate. I wonder if there's a shared setup. And oh, we've had a problem with Jared Jewell. Jared Jewell is around at the carousel.
Oh, that's a tough break for him. He was running 13th. We'll take a quick look at this one.
Unfortunately, who is that having to take evasive action? The paved runoff. But Jewell adding an extra spin to this carousel, unfortunately. Pulls it forward to get out of the way into that Armco and then tries to find an opening.
He finished back in 21st at Monza. He was on par for a 13th here.
Ooh, we need to go back to Acosta. Acosta's got a good run coming up the backstretch. Modoff knows it. He goes to the inside line. We've seen this story before. And Modoff, whoa, he's hot into that inner loop, but somehow gets it woed up and keeps the number 5 behind him.
Bold move by both of them there. Modoff is definitely showing that he's here to fight. Might not have the most speed right now, but he might have the most experience.
Yeah, I'd say of this group, he certainly has the most impressive rep sheet. When are we going to get that white flag, though? I think not this time, but next time by.
going to allow Abner Acosta 12 more opportunities.
I was just going to say, I have a feeling Modoff wishes this was the white flag. But he's been dealing with this well, even though he seems to struggle a little bit in pace compared to Diaz and Acosta. I haven't really seen him make too many wild mistakes. He's been very cool under pressure.
Yeah, the speed has just not been there tonight for Karl Modoff. And I think in a lot of positions that he's been put in tonight, I think if the average sim racer were in the seat of that 948, that would not go nearly as well as Modoff being able to hold that up on the podium.
Oh, yeah. Just trust me, I would have buckled. I definitely would not have been mistake-free at this point. Just too far back this time, unfortunately, for Abner.
Yeah, not a good setup there.
Doesn't get a second try, at least this time. He'll get one more opportunity to get that run when the final lap happens this next time by. Not missing much else down towards the bottom, and you're definitely not missing anything with our leader, Carballo, who is still losing a little bit of time. I think this is intentional. Just bringing the car home. Diaz, who is continued to be quicker last time, actually by about half a second faster than Caraballo. But Diaz is nowhere near close enough to try and take 4 seconds out of him in a single lap.
Yeah, Moises definitely just being a little cautious, wanting to get that revenge on what happened last week.
Unfortunately, as fast as you are, there always seems to be someone just that little bit faster. And I think Modoff is discovering that, despite being possibly the only driver in the PRL series to win every single race in a single season, and then going back-to-back on championships. He had a target on his back. Drivers came around and said, I want to beat this man. Can Acosta do that? He's coming up the hill through the S's. I think he's close enough, at least to make an attack on this Technicolor Porsche. And right on board with Modoff looking back, who once again is going to cover him off. What happens with Acosta, though? Under the brakes, he tries to go as deep as he can. Both of them try to go. Acosta through the grass. Did he get a cut course penalty with that? He's backing off, and that might be the end of that battle.
I think he did, and if he didn't, he might just had to have gathered it up there. He might have been a lot more out of control than he made it look.
In front of them, Moises Caraballo. He didn't get the chance that he probably thought he deserved to take a victory at Monza. The Hispano-American driver was punted out of the way. Well, not really punted. That might be a bit harsh. Just tipped, I should say, down into the first corner at Monza. This time he avoided that. He stayed out of people's way. He got himself a pretty good gap. And then from there, he's been managing it. The green, white, and black Ferrari of the number 827 comes around the final corner from a DNF in the first round to a pole to flag victory here from Moises Caraballo. Diaz redeems himself with a second, Modoff with a third. Our entire podium essentially redeeming themselves. Acosta, I'm not sure if he'll be disappointed with a fourth, but if he's looking at a championship, a fourth won't hurt too bad. The drivers continue to trickle across. Eisler is in a little bit of a battle, but I think Fernando Borda really doesn't have a good enough run to get by him here at the end. Incredibly, we had 26 cars finish on the lead lap.
Yeah, very clean race. Great driving by everyone. We see here Costello come across the line behind Michael Stogbauer. That is for
Peterson.
13th. Yep, Leif Peterson there.
That's our last real fight on track. Everybody else is a second or more apart. So as the last of those drivers just come across the start-finish line and breathe a sigh of relief. We're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around. On screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Watkins Glen, where we just watched round 2 of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series, and Moises Caraballo proved his speed is no fluke. He can hold it all the way throughout the race and manage it perfectly with a victory here. And Michael Diaz followed him home. Once he sussed out that fuel thing, it looks like he is going to be a force to be reckoned with as well. Karl Modoff, who was a multi-time champion, started on the front row and finished in third, having to fend off Abner Acosta, winner of the first round, who gets a 4th place, having started in 6th. Dino Filippa finished P7, and Sean Macbeth didn't climb a whole lot, but he went up from 7th on the grid to 6th here. It's Hefner who really found some pace here compared to his qualifying. Zach went from 12th to 7th. Then it's Jorge Flores taking 8th, with Christian Eisler coming home 9th, and Fernando Borda finishing in the top 10.
On the last lap, Pablo Uribe overtook Jeffrey Arroyan for 11th place. They wind up there on row number 6 there. 13th goes to Michael Stogbauer, coming home just in front of Tony Costello and Leif Peterson, who rounds out the top 15. Jared Jewell, after a little bit of a spin later in the race. He's going to wind up back in 16th. Pete Mo Broughton, 17th. Cristobal Valenzuela, Rodrigo Munoz, and Matthew Tina will be rounding out the top 20.
21st goes to Justin Rame. Very early pit stop, but it's still a disappointing day. He had his share of problems, and even though he qualified in 8th, he'll be 21st. Joshua Daniels in 22nd with Matthew Hall 23rd. Kenny Rodriguez climbing up a couple spots to take 24th. He was followed by Joey Trungale back in P25. Tyler Gilmet finishes 26th with Cody Bauman. The last car in the lead lap in 27th. Andre Espinoza got the car back out on track, but he was 3 laps down. He was 28th. Then you've got our DNS for the day. Takeshi Kita 29th, Sebastian Masiata 30th, and Anthony Pisano 31st. We've got our podium ready to talk to us, including our winner, Moises Caraballo. So let's bring him in. And Moises, I have to imagine that this is a lot more satisfying of a race than you had at Monza. Moises, do you have a copy?
Yes, a lot.
There
Much
he
better.
Yeah. It was sad to see you go out so early after taking the pole in Italy, and then when we saw you get the pole again, we knew we were in for some excitement, because boy, the distance between you and Modoff on the qualifying was incredibly small.
Yeah, well, car has a great pace. He was very fast in the qualifying session, and I have to take out a little bit of me to get that lap.
Tell us about the end of the race, because we did see that Michael Diaz was lapping a little bit faster than you at the end and pulled the gap down. Were you just managing that gap, or was he legitimately faster?
No, Michael was very fast in the last stint. When we go to the pit stop, we go out of the pit stop, and he has a great pace. He was very fast. And I have trouble with my tires. I think I eat my tires in the first stint, so the car was a little bit loose of the rear, and I have to fight a lot with the car.
Now that you've got a win under your belt, do you feel pretty confident about taking the fight to Modoff for the championship?
Let's try it. I will do my best. So let's see what happens. It's a big long championship and big drivers here. So we have to learn every day about what the car is doing, every day setting up, and I will try to do my best to fight hard with the championship.
I like that pragmatic view. That is Moises Caraballo, our winner here today. Nick has caught up with second place, who was apparently faster. Michael Diaz will tell us about his race.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Fantastic after seeing that race there, Michael. And we mentioned to Moises that was probably a much better race for him than last week at Monza. I'd say the same for you. A much better result for you. I'm sure you're a lot happier.
Yeah, I definitely took care not to mess up the pit stop this time.
And a little bit faster there on that last stint, it looked like we were hearing from Caraballo there. Is that true? Were you able to close in on there? We thought he was just managing the gap, but you think if the race went a couple minutes longer, you might have been able to close in on him?
I mean, I caught up a little bit, but I wouldn't think I would have passed him. I mean, I had no tires at the end. My car was done. Just no grip, rear, front. Tire were.
Yeah, it's similar to what he told us about tires. It must have really put a hampering on those machines out there, the track temperature and the conditions. We saw you ride behind Carl Modoff for quite some time in this race. Was that another fuel strategy like we saw at Monza, or just not wanting to pass him until later in the race, not wanting to make a mistake?
I just wanted to take care of my tires a little bit behind them, and subsequently save some fuel, and then just go for it on the second stint. So it worked out pretty well. I wasn't expecting him to break so early when I passed him. I wasn't actually going for the move, but I got through and got P2. So good race.
Yeah, it was a good second place result for you. We head to a track not as known for its speed as Monza and Watkins Glen next week. We go to the Nürburgring. Are you excited for that? The Grand Prix course, I should specify. Are you excited for that race? There is a little bit of elevation change, couple similarities to the Glen.
I mean, it's okay. Hopefully I could get a better result. Glen is not like really my best track, so let's see what I could do next week.
All right, we're looking forward to that. We will be here, and hopefully you will be too in the booth talking to us after the race.
Yeah, hopefully. You guys have a good night, and thanks for hosting.
That was second place finisher Michael Diaz. And then third place on the podium was Carl Modoff. Before we really get fully to this race, Carl, my first question involves last week as well. You showed up a little late, which we were kind of used to, but you wound up in 16th position in qualifying. And then I noticed you showed up for quite a bit of practice today. Was that not coincidental?
Yeah, definitely not. Last week, I've been really busy. I was in Montreal, and I was in Nebraska. I just had come back, and I hopped in the server last week with zero practice pretty much. So I always knew that was going to be really tough, and I was really stoked last week to make it up to 7. But when I went to go pit, no idea where to actually decelerate there to make the speed. That's why I got such a bad speeding penalty last week. But, yeah, so this week, kind of same. I've been out of town all week, but I had today. So I was able to get plenty of practice in. Because, the competition in this league gets better every year. It's really tough this year. These guys are all new, and they're all really fast. I've raced against them before just in public servers. So I know I'm going to need a lot of practice, and I'm going to continue winning. So, yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with third today. I was hoping to get second, but, top 3, I definitely can't complain after 12th last week.
Yeah, certainly a much better finish. We asked Moises if he's going to try and take the fight to you, and he took something of a pragmatic view of saying, he's just going to take it a race at a time to try and see where he can find the speed. You obviously have to play a little bit of catch up after this week. Do you think you have something for him or any strong tracks where you think you could potentially get a win over him?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm just going to approach because I think there's some other guys that are going to be tough too. I know Felipe is real fast, and Diaz, obviously, there's a whole group of guys here. I think depending on the track, the cars are going to, with everyone so high level here, it's going to be really the track. It's going to make a difference with the car. So I'm just going to, keep an open mind, trying to be as fast as I can every week and see what happens. I think Nürburgring, I like driving that track a lot. Has a lot of transition corners, which I think Porsche is kind of good at flicking left or right through. So hopefully I'll be strong next week at Nürburgring.
Oh, we look forward to seeing that battle between yourself and many very, very fast drivers. Congratulations on a podium.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Take care. See you next week.
That was Carl Modoff, who finished third today, and that's going to close us out as we get ready to wrap up for the night. We have to thank, of course, our sponsors. First one being SIMSA. That is the Simulation Motorsports Affinity. And if you would like to check them out, you can find them at simsa.net. Also, Butt Kicker. You can find them at thebuttkicker.com. They can help make your simulator all the more cooler and immersive. We've given you a little bit of feeling for the road. With Butt Kicker, you can feel what you've been missing. Also, thanks goes out to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and go to their YouTube page, click the big red button that says subscribe, and get each of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series races in your YouTube feed. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, we're going over to Germany, back to Europe, for Nürburgring for the third round. That'll be on the GP course. That'll be Tuesday, July 2nd at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get a little racing in before your Independence Day celebrations if you're over here in the States watching. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.